Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. It's still Daybreak on Trust TV. Now let's take a look at the dailies and what the papers this morning are saying. We'll begin with Daily Trust newspaper, and at the top of the page you can already see that campaigns for Senate presidency has already started, and lead story here talks about 98 Chibok schoolgirls still in captivity 9 years after. We have writers that say freed girls decry stigmatization. We never stopped praying for return of our daughters, says principal. I won't give up till my last day in office, says Buhari. All missing girls must be rescued, says Amnesty International, and details of the story can be found on page 4. You'd see a pictorial of a Chibok woman demanding for the release of their daughters from Boko Haram, and also inserts of former First Lady of the United States of America, Michelle Obama, with a placard saying hashtag bring back our girls, and that was from years ago. Now moving on, a runoff polls. 36,935 voters to decide Fintiri Binani's fate in Adamawa. Federal government spent 13 trillion naira on subsidies in 16 years. Thieves stole 16 trillion naira oil, says Nati. Buhari performs Umrah amid tight security in Mecca. And these are some of the stories on Daily Trust newspaper.
For the Nation newspaper this morning, from the very top, we see Time lists Tinubu among 100 most influential. And beside that, we see nobody trapped on the Lagos building, collapsed Lagos building. We also see Nati, government spent 13 trillion naira on petrol subsidy in 6 years. Quite a lot. If you want to read more on that story, you could check page 5 of the Nation newspaper. And below the masthead, we see NSIA grew net assets to 1.02 trillion in 2022. TET fund okays 30 billion for projects. And for the very glaring headline, Tinubu to tribunal. Petitions by Atiku PDP not competent. Not joining Obi, Kwankwaso invalidates suit. Voters in FCT not superior. And also we see on the belt, PSC probes cash for promotion allegation. And also 7 burnt to death for Ogere crash. And that's it for the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The lead story here talks about supplementary elections. PDP battle for 2 governors, 94 legislative seats. We have writers that says Atiku mobilizes support for PDP candidates. APC backs Binani in upstage Fintiri. IGLA's fears of voter intimidation, deploys personnel in 2,660 polling units. We have a pictorial there of the president performing Lesser Hajj, urging Muslims to be self-reliant. From the top of the page, Tinubu Don make Time magazine 100 most influential persons. CBN to mop up dormant account balances, unclaimed funds. Fuel subsidy and oil theft gulp 29 trillion naira, says federal government. And below the page there, Obi Kwankwaso shared Atiku's votes, Tinubu tells tribunal. On building collapse, LASG stops construction projects in Banana Island. And the House leadership reps elect form 283-member alliance. These are some of the stories on Punch newspaper.
And the Guardian newspaper leads with a story on the race to the Senate presidency. Kalu Akpabio lead as South jostles for Lawan's seat. Underneath that, and besides the pictorial, we see CBN takes custody of dormant funds from banks. Accountability concerns trail yearly 63.46 million barrels oil swap deal. And underneath that, we see aviation workers threaten 2-day warning strike over COS welfare. And we see another one. Drama continues as Obi denies British government apology over detention. Catch that story on page 6 as it's been developing quite a lot of controversy in the last few days. And we see the pictorial which says beaches for the rich, from solving chronic erosion to privatizing beaches. That's a big story on The Guardian, and you can find that on page 4 and 5. That's it for The Guardian this morning.
All right, let's take a look at this day newspaper. From the top of the page there, federal government cedes exclusive custody of returned Benin artifacts to Oba of Benin. Decision ends tussle between monarch Edo governor. We also have with 2.8% growth prediction, World Bank urges Nigeria to ease trade barriers. We also have below the masthead there, Tinubu, Biden, El Anetsui, King Charles make Time 100 Most Influential People 2023. Ahead of rerun polls, IG deploys personnel, logistics in 24 states. Atiku drums support for Adamawa Governor, Fintiri Party, APC, PDP supporters demand credible polls in Adamawa. The lead story here says that Tinubu talks about Tinubu saying Atiku PDP's petitions gross abuse of judicial process, says ex-VP's candidacy balkanized, affected his party's fortunes, dismisses him as a serial loser, recalls him his many electoral losses. Atiku's aid on $460,000 forfeiture, you can't outrun your past. And these are some of the stories on this day newspaper.
And for the News Direct newspaper this morning, we start from the very top. APC rep candidate asks Osun Tribunal to sack Ajile Soro of PDP. Also, energy theft report illegal electricity consumers. EKE-DC urges customers. Also, Dangote Cement pledges higher returns, value to shareholders, approve 340.8 billion naira dividend. And for the leading story, World Bank lists anti-growth policies frustrating Nigeria's economy, highlights insecurity, dependency on oil, others, lowers GDP projection growth to 2.8%. And we see the pictorial of directors of Dangote Cement Group at its 14th general meeting of the Dangote Cement PLC held in Lagos yesterday. And underneath that, we see tribunal contest. Tinubu objects to petition for runoff election, says Atiku is a serial loser. And finally, you could catch Femi Additional's column at the back page of the News Direct newspaper. And that's it for the News Direct.
All right, on Leadership Friday, we have the lead story here. Federal government puts states on red alert over impending floods. It will likely be worse than 2022. We also have a rider that says 80% of 774 local government areas to be affected. Stakeholders engaged to mitigate risks. We really hope something is done about this quickly. And then at the top of the page there, Ghana becomes first country to approve Oxford malaria vaccine. British Commission declines comment on Obi's detention by UK immigration. And we also have Commission probes alleged $10,000 bribe for promotion in police. We also have APC holds governorship primaries in Bayelsa, Kogi, Imo today. And these are some of the stories on Leadership Friday.
And we go to First News. Besides the masthead, we see Banana Island building collapse. Sanwo-Olu orders probe as Lasema rescues 25. Below that, Kogi Guba Yahya Bello Sean's deputy unveils preferred successor as Onoja pulls out of the race. Quite interesting. We also see I have no anointed candidate for speaker. That's according to the current speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila. Also, Adamawa rerun 36.935 voters to determine Fintiri Binani's fate. And for the major headline, Time lists Tinubu amongst 2023 100 most influential people. Says his electoral victory not an easy feat in Africa's most populous country. Describes his campaign slogan, Emilio Con, as a nod to his role as a long-time political power broker. Acknowledges Tinubu's role in restoring democracy in Nigeria in 1999 after fighting military, serving as Lagos governor for 8 years. And also 2023 presidential poll. Biafra agitator Ekpa writes UN declares Obi winner. And these are some of the stories on First News. We'll now take a short breather, and when we return, we'll be serving you more on the analysis. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back, and thank you for staying with us on Daybreak this beautiful Friday morning. And right now, we're done reeling out the headlines from the front pages of the national dailies. It's time for us to analyze some of these stories, and we have in the studio with us our constant Friday guests. Talking about Nuruddin Abdullah, and he's the editor, 21st Century Chronicles. Very, very constant guest. Good
Indeed.
Morning, and thank you
Good
for
morning,
joining
thank you.
us. All right, so let's begin with the glaring headline on Daily Trust newspaper, talking about 98 Chibok schoolgirls still in captivity 9 years after. And then we have so many writers, but the one that actually picked my interest is the one where the president said he will not give up until his last day in office. So far we've seen some of the girls rescued, some of the girls escaped, some of the girls found, but we still have 98 of them still in captivity. Can anything be done before the president leaves office?
Very unlikely, because the president has less than 50 days to go, having spent 7 years, 10 months in office. And why is this significant? Because the APC government came into power on the back of the Chibok Girls campaign. You remember the Bring Back Our Girls campaign here in Abuja? It's one of the Chibok Girls incident was one of the major factors responsible for the defeat of the then ruling party, the PDP. The way the Jonathan administration handled the issue and the way it sparked out of control with the international community. I could remember the U.S. Senator, John McCain. You remember, he was speaking at the Congress. He said, no, we have to, he was saying something that there was no government in Abuja. And, they will just rescue the artificial. You remember one of the pictures of the United States President, then First Lady, Michelle Obama. But it's unfortunate that 8 years after this government came, with the hope of ending the security challenges, particularly school children abduction from their dormitories, the issue exacerbated after Chibok in 2014 that this government promised to rescue immediately when they came into power. We had Dapchi in Yobe. We moved to Kankara in Katsina, down to Kagara in Niger. We still remember the Greenfield in Kaduna, the Bethel up to now. I think some of them are still there.
Yes.
So the thing became rampant. Chibok was the major one that we had, all right, the maiden one we had. But when Buhari came with this mantra of ending insecurity, as a retired general, the issue spiked. Apart from Chibok, there are some Bethel Baptist students still in captivity.
Of course.
I don't know that of Greenfield. We had not once, not twice, not thrice in Niger State. You understand? So it's unfortunate that nearly 100 of these Chibok girls are still with the terrorists. Yeah, let's accept the fact that the government tried major ways in degrading the offensive capabilities of the Boko Haram terrorists. Maybe largely because of the death of Sheikh O, which was courtesy of the infighting between the ISWAP and the traditional Boko Haram terrorists and what have you. But I thought maybe the government must have upped its ante by keying into this apparent fraction between the two terrorist factions by rescuing these girls. But maybe another thing that we have to put into consideration is this. Most of the 9 years now, majority of them may be virgins, young schoolgirls. We saw how some of them were brought back, some rescued, some escaped with babies. And you can see that trauma.
Indeed.
You understand. And some of them were so terrified, traumatized, converted into the terrorist ideologies that they don't even want to come back. I remember a particular incident of a girl. She came with pregnancy. She was impregnated by a terrorist. Her parent apparently rejected her. She became a subject of scorn in the community. I remember when she gave birth, she said that she was suspicious of the manner her son, that she loved her son, which she got from a terrorist. But her mother, her grandpa, everybody in the community was against him. The boy just suddenly died. And I saw her interview. She was saying that everybody was happy. Everybody was happy. Minus her. So, that is the challenges. It's an issue with multifaceted aspects. Maybe the federal government should have done more than enough. But after spending 7 years, 10 months in office, you are saying the president is not even here.
Isn't this an indictment now, looking at the fact that the president said he would not rest until his last day in office? But we've not seen that sort of commitment, at least one would say, because you mentioned quite a number of incidences, the Greenfield, Bethel Baptist, Birnin Yauri, and then there's also the Kankara issue, Dapchi. And okay, Dapchi didn't happen during Buhari's tenure, of course. Now I'm talking about those peculiar to his administration. In all of this, just recently in Zamfara State, even though they were not school children, but they were children as well, 85 people were abducted. Isn't this an indictment to his administration and the government generally, that they are not putting in as much effort as they should be, as much as they would say that they have dissipated, the whims of this terrorist per se?
Yeah, that is it. And Dapchi happened, the first one that happened under Buhari's administration. Chiba was the one that happened under Jonathan's. Yes, if you take the UNICEF data, more school and girls child we are pulled out of schools.
Indeed.
Because of these rampant attacks. You can count the number that happened in Katsina, in Zamfara, in Sokoto, in Niger. Take the Birnin Yauri, a federal government facility. Some were even married up. I think until recently there are some private individuals who are even raising funds. Nobody cares. Talking about Chibok, apart from the anniversary, when last did you hear any government official talking about Chibok?
Almost as if they've been forgotten.
So that explains the fact that what the president said, he will do everything possible. His officials have to be reminded, okay, Chibok girls anniversary will be tomorrow. Then the last 50 days in office and whatever. It's unfortunate that he came under the cradle of this Chibok girls activism. But unfortunately, instead of making the Chibok incident the first and the last, rather, what did we have? We had more than 20 major incidents, and majority of them still in captivity. Take the Birnin Yauri incident, a federal government college. So it's most unfortunate. We hope that maybe the new administration will put an end to, will close the chapter. If they are dead, let their parents know. Because it's easier to think that your son, daughter in particular is dead, than to be under the custody of one terrorist in the forest. You understand? She is dead, she is dead. You can't, we are Muslim, we are religious people. Whether Muslims or Christians, you can take solace, everybody will die. But to imagine that a young girl taken away from her dormitory and now living with a terrorist,
You don't even have access.
you know, it's unimaginable, the trauma.
So a follow-up now. The Archbishop of the Francis Xavier Church in Ondo State, Archbishop Jude Arugundade, in his Easter message to Nigeria, because the church was opened on Easter Day for the first time after, I think, 10 to 11 months following the attack and massacre of 40 worshippers. He mentioned that Nigeria and its government has a bad habit of moving on too quickly from attacks and quickly forgetting the aftermath of such. Do you subscribe to that belief as well?
Yeah, of course, yes, of course. That's what the government wants. And you know, they're even blaming the media. But it is the way the country is structured. Take, for instance, who is talking about Accountant General of the Federation?
Indeed.
That stole those billions.
Indeed.
We have moved on. That's the reality. And that's what the government wants. Like the Chibok issue. It is only during the anniversary. Then when they are called, okay, you need maybe the media X, I want to feel. You remember, she's late now, the then Women Affairs Minister, when she was engaging with the parents of these Chibok girls. You know, she openly told them that you should take solace and what to feel. But she was reminded, you contested as a governor in your Taraba state. You lost. You went to tribunal. Not enough. You went to Court of Appeal. You are even moving to Supreme Court. Why didn't you leave it in the hands of God? Imagine if your daughter, and you know, we see the government officials with their families, you know, the people that the security that's supposed to protect these school children. We have more than 20 million school children out of school. When this administration came, they were less than 9 million. They upgraded it to 20 million now, 8 years after. Look at them.
Okay.
They don't even ply the roads.
All right, let's move on to more stories. They're still on the front page of Daily Trust. I want you to share your thoughts on the supplementary elections, you know, about to happen, especially the governorship election in Kebbi and Adamawa State.
I don't think it will make any difference, barring any last minute. Nigeria is a country of surprises. Looking at the current official data, what the PDP governor, you know, the difference in Adamawa is about 31,000, and registered voters for tomorrow's election are 36,000. So you can see, I don't know, anything can happen, but apparently you know where it is going. Same thing in Kebbi. The APC guy is leading with a wide margin. When you compare it with the registered voters that are going to vote tomorrow, you'll apparently see where the pendulum will swing. But there are about over 90 legislative seats. House of Assembly, House of Reps, and what have you. But I think maybe with voter apathy, maybe you'll have, the general election, we have less than 30% turnout. Traditionally, rerun or supplementary election, you have less than half of the general voter turnout, maybe 10%, 15%. Turnout. In Kano, yeah, it will be very serious in Kano in some areas, because there is, if you look at the Dogua, Tudungwada federal constituency, where the current House of Reps majority leader is leading, you see. So the parties are up and using all the available, both legal and illegal means to
and other
ensure
means.
that.
Okay, so Nuruddin, my apologies to bring you back. I understand you were actively part of the negotiation process. You would correct me, I may be wrong. I'm talking about during the Chibok incident. So I want to ask this question: how would you rate, say, the government's approach towards the whole issue? Now, I'm talking about negotiating with these said actors, and also, on the other hand, rehabilitating said actors if they put down arms at the detriment of some of those who are still living the horrors of the experiences, during and post attacks.
So maybe to start, I was never part of any negotiation process.
I may be wrong.
But all over the world, there is international standards that people who take up arms against government, when they are defeated, or when they are surrender voluntarily, they are co-opted back into society. But in terms of now we're talking about terrorism.
Yes.
Talking about terrorism. Yes, they are defeated and they are surrendering in mass. And don't forget, it is not a political agitation that led to the taking over of the arms. It's a warped religious indoctrination. You ask them, what actually do they want? Nobody will tell you. If you look at all the preachments of the former Boko Haram leader, Bakr Sheikh, and what have you. So therefore, nothing wrong in rehabilitating reformed terrorists. But all over the world, there are benchmarks. Those with blows in their hands are tried according to the laws. That's the standard. Bomb makers, combat terrorists, there are those, like their family members, for instance. Some were forcibly taken from their communities and villages and converted into the wives of the terrorists. Unless they actively participated in combat operations that led to the mass slaughter of civilians, those can be excused, rehabilitated, and returned to the society. But those with the military know, if they are passed now, they know if you ever carry a gun or what if you, there is a exactly. And the intelligence community, they know who was a bomb maker, they know operational or whatever, because they have their people. Those who are involved in mass slaughter of civilians must be prosecuted according to the law. They cannot just, okay, take for instance now, if Sheikh, for instance, has reformed and repented, then he will be brought back to Maiduguri? No, you should follow the law. What did the law say? So that is what they should do. And unfortunately, again, the federal government is not doing enough. Yeah, Borno State government is doing. Building and destroy facilities, talking about schools, health facilities, even shelter out of it, and returning those IDPs. But the federal government is not. Yeah, there is hundreds of those reformed terrorists, in particularly Giwa barracks. But talk to the military people. So that these people, you remember there was an incident the military denied at that time? Was it on the way of the slaughtering of animals, sacrificial animals for them? There was almost violent protest, almost disarming soldiers and what have you. So it means that that horror, that ideology is still there. That bloodthirsty ideology is still there. So we have to go a long way in separating those involved in mass slaughter of civilians and those who found themselves there, or those with lesser crimes. Some certainly have to face the firing squad. Some may be live imprisonment. Some 10, 20 years out of it. Some can even be freed, because maybe particularly the women or their children, their younger children and what have you. So that is it. But you know, just saying that a general was saying that a reformed Boko Haram can be president of Nigeria, that is ridiculous. It's an insult, particularly of the hundreds or thousands of Nigerians whose loved ones, family members, neighbors and friends, we are mass slaughtered by this terrorist element. So I think that's my take.
Well, sadly, we've actually come to the end of this segment. Thank you so much, Nuruddin Abdullah, for
My
joining
pleasure.
us again this morning.